Metroid is literally my favorite thing. Brand, franchise, universe, characters, lore, whatever. Metroid is pretty much my favorite. It's been a very special franchise to me since I was a kid, and it's probably the start of me being into games in general. So it's quite impossible to overstate just how excited I was for Prime 4. I never thought it would come out, and then, out of nowhere one direct, there it was. Not just an announcement, but an actual gameplay trailer with a release date soon to follow. It looked perfect. Everything looked as exciting as I hoped it would, but it was not all sunshines and rainbows. As the launch date of December 4th approached, new details would emerge, and with every new detail, the hype I once felt wilted more and more. What was once expected to automatically be my game of the century, near regardless of its quality relative to the other games, quickly became a game I was optimistic about, then apprehensive, then eventually pessimistic and hopeless about, to the point where I even refused to buy the game.
Fortunately, one of my friends is Nintendo's biggest meat writer, and he purchased the game, allowing me to get access to it shortly after.
Get out of here. You have no swag. You're such a bitch.
Because I expected it to be terrible. I was right, and today I'm going to talk about why I say that, starting with the Metroid Prime 1, 2, and to a far lesser degree 3 have a beautifully interconnected world. While Prime 1 had a flawed version of this design in that it lacked decent shortcuts between each area, Metroid Prime 2 perfected this design. Every major area in Prime 2 had shortcuts that interconnected every other major area, making backtracking and item collecting more fun and streamlined, as you spent less time during your hunt for items just walking around and more time actually finding them. Metroid Prime 3 had different planets for you to explore, which made Retro go with a slightly different design since planets couldn't exactly be directly connected. They did this decently with kind of fast travel points with Samus's ship. In Prime 4, they throw all that out the window. Prime 4 has 5 different areas connected by a giant fuck-off desert. This game has the least interconnected world of all the games. It's genuinely infuriating to me. I would rather traverse Magmore Caverns 17 more times just to get between the areas of Prime 1 than spend one more monotonous, annoying second holding forward and getting jumped in the desert. In Soul Valley, the desert, there is nearly nothing that makes this area interesting. There are shrines littered about that offer you green crystals, which are needed for something we'll talk about later, and then resource expansions such as missiles, E-tanks, and shot upgrades. There are also Federation-based ruins, which are only really needed at the endgame, and then deposits of green crystals. Besides that, there isn't really shit in this area. You don't even get the comfort of music. Because in the move that you'd expect quicker out of EA or Activision Blizzard than Nintendo and Retro, the music in this area is locked behind the amiibo. And not just any amiibo, it's locked behind their fresh, new amiibo, with a higher price to match. This area single-handedly ruins the entire game in my opinion. However, if it was removed, the game would be an incredible amount better, as the problems run way deeper, down to the core of the game. In the Soul Valley, the only thing the player can do is hold forward, with the occasional interruptions from annoying enemies that do way too fucking much damage. Now, don't be mistaken by me saying that. This game is not difficult in the slightest. In my playthrough on normal mode, I didn't die a single time, with the exception of the beginning of the snow area where I was told that that is what you're supposed to do. You were given a fight you can't win. Anyway, Soul Valley is what killed my hype for this game. I think they were trying to do what Prime 2 did, where the world was connected by a central area that led to all the other areas in the game. However, while copying Prime 2's homework and trying to make it look different, they failed to consider what made Prime 2 work so well. What made that game work so well, and made it such an improvement over the first game, is its shortcuts and interconnectivity, as well as the well-placed upgrades and expansions. They don't have that in Prime 4. Every time you want to travel between one of the major areas in the game, you can count on a 5-minute straightforward drive with occasional breaks and interruptions from enemies that act as nothing more than a minor annoyance. I could talk for an eternity on why I hate this aspect of the game, but I'll move on now to the There are 5 major areas in Metroid Prime 4, and to be 100% honest, they aren't great for the most part. The first area is most definitely the best one in terms of Metroid design. The Fury Green is the only area in this game that truly feels like you're playing a Metroid game. It's a very strong start to the game. At least, at first it is. It lures you in with mystery, intrigue, great music, and strong art direction. It feels like a living forest, incredibly immersive. Then the veil of a good game is shattered by the introduction of the first human character in this game. Miles McKenzie. Miles is a Galactic Federation engineer, and he's the worst character in this game. His writing is genuinely awful.
But you're also not sitting next to Phil anymore in that cubicle, so...
Nice to meet you, my lady. Thank you for the gold, kind stranger.
I see the average intelligence isn't ready for...
He spits shitty one-liners and whatnot, like all good Marvel characters, and he frankly ruins the vibe and immersion of the area. Later, he sets up a base and comms with Samus. This is where he becomes an even larger annoyance. While he may not be as present in the game anymore, he now yaps at you anytime you're exploring the Soul Valley. He will periodically yell at you and tell you where to go and what to do, ruining the player's already neutered exploration by nagging. It was inconsistent in the early game, but after the third area, it was a constant for me. I'd drive a minute or two, then be interrupted by him nagging. I've no fucking clue what they were thinking with this, to be honest. This franchise has always been about exploration, isolation, and immersion. This game throws that out the window with the Metroid equivalent of Navi. He also becomes an even larger annoyance as soon as the third area of the game. It's a shame, too, because talking characters aren't inherently bad in a Metroid game. It worked in Prime 2, Dread, and Fusion, and Prime 3. He also has moments that I like. There's a moment when you get the first shot upgrade where he mulls over something that you bring him. It's cool. A tech guy who's intelligent and obsessive over alien tech is cool. It's just a shame that every moment, other than that with this guy, is cringe at best and infuriating at worst.
You are worthless, bitch-ass nigga. Your life literally is as valuable as a summer ant.
Back to the Fury Green. You collect items, fight a boss, and leave. But you'll notice something about this area. Several doors have a lock that you can't interact with right now. So you'll come back. That's a staple of the franchise. Enjoy it while it lasts. In this area, you'll learn that you need 5 teleporter keys to get back to where you came from. You obtain one of them here, and then set out to gain the others. Once you leave that area, you'll find yourself at the Vault Forge, a massive factory facility powered by an endlessly raging thunderstorm that engulfs it. This sounds really cool, right? And conceptually it is. But in terms of actual layout and gameplay, it's fucking terrible. This is simply not an area made for a Metroid game. Your time in this area will be spent holding forward with little actual exploration to be had. You'll see things that might seem intriguing for later, like the aforementioned door locks. But you'll soon come to realize that this is all a farce. You progress through the facility and fight a boss until you eventually obtain the Viola bike. You'll have a long drawn-out tutorial segment, followed by another long drawn-out tutorial segment for the bike. During the first one, it explains how to use it. During the second one, it makes you test what it just taught you, while explaining how to use the bike again. The area is cool in concept, visuals, and music, but the gameplay is terrible. The area essentially is structured like a straightforward linear corridor, occasionally broken up by combat. Only one of the bosses you fight in this area actually rewards you with an ability, and the other an energy tank, which is incredibly confusing. Fortunately, this area is mostly devoid of interruptions for miles, even if not entirely. You fight the area boss and get what you came here for, and then leave. After that area, you can now freely traverse the desert, and you are told that you are free to go whichever area you want to go first.
You found a teleporter key. Congratulations. Looks like there's 3 keys left. Up to you to decide which one to go after first.
So that was a fucking lie.
That's not true at all. None of that is. All of the shrines are locked with locks I mentioned before, whether it be fire, ice, or an electric one. And you can only get further than a few feet in the snow area, which even that isn't entirely accessible yet. What you actually need to do is go to the volcano area, waddle around for a bit, picking up a chip you find in a piece of machinery, then take it to Miles so that he can use it to give you an upgrade.
You want some turkey? Well, first you gotta fuck me.
So that you can then go all the way back to the snow area and enter it. This is another issue with the pacing of the game. The shot upgrades. For all 3 of them, you have to get a chip in a random area and take it back to Miles so that he can give you the upgrade. This is a massive pace killer. Instead of doing the fun exploration part of the game, you have to break it up and go back across the desert several times just so you can talk to Miles. In previous games, you would fight a boss or explore to get an upgrade. Just imagine if instead of getting the Varia suit in Prime 1 after fighting the plant in the ruins, you had to take it all the way back to your ship, then go all the way back just to get into Magmore. It just doesn't really make sense. It's needless and wastes the player's time. And that's the biggest thing that I hate about this game. It wastes the player's time. It's honestly the biggest reason why I don't stop at Prime 4 is a bad Metroid game, and I say it's just a bad game. Anyway, after an age of back and forth, you go back to the snow area and progress. You enter an open area and walk before getting attacked by a swarm of wolves. They surround you, and you think, oh, this is going to be a cool boss fight or something. No, this is an endurance battle. Your goal is to stay alive for as long as possible. I don't know if killing them even speeds it up. This is actually the only part of the game where I died. I was playing it in call with my friends, and the friend whom I borrowed the game from was telling me that he's pretty sure that you just had to die and that you couldn't win. I didn't want to do that, so I fought for around 5 minutes or so. I got bored and let them kill me. I was greeted by an actual game over, and we were both dumbfounded. What you're supposed to do is fight for like 10 fucking minutes till out of nowhere a Federation guy in a tower starts shooting at the wolves and they leave. You're left at low health with little resources. You push into the facility and meet the soldier who saved you. His name is Tokabi, and he's probably the most tolerable character out of all of them. He's a Galactic Federation sniper and he's injured, and he'll be here for a little while you search for the key. He doesn't talk much, so he's not much of an annoyance. However, you'll notice some things off about him pretty quick. His voice acting, for one, is very strange. Very flat and unusual. I don't know if this was intentional, but it reminds me of something else in the franchise, and I can't quite place my finger on.
And the baby.
You find out that you need to turn on the power and get to the bottom of the facility to get the key, and so you go on. While exploring the facility, you'll scan logs that will tell you what happened here, and the overall lore and story of what happened to the Lemorn. You find out that this was essentially a hospital, and the story here is actually pretty cool.
There's currently a celebrity in the hospital.
You turn on the power, which causes the facility to begin thawing out, and with it several grievers who were frozen in the area. You regroup with Tokabi and defend him in one of the many endurance defend the position sections in this game. Then you activate the elevator below and go fight the area's boss and get the key. Afterward, Tokabi says he's staying to heal his injuries, and then you leave. Overall, this is my favorite area in the game. While it suffers from the linearity that the other areas suffer from, it has a super interesting premise and the structure where you uncover the horrors that befell the facility. It's eerie and isolating. It feels very much like something from Fusion, which is my favorite of the 2D games, so I quite like it. If this was the only linear area in the game, it would actually be really cool as a one-off, I think, but all the other areas are also extremely linear. This is just the only one that does it well. On your way out, you'll obtain a new chip, and after taking it to Miles, he'll give you the ice shot, which gives you access to the volcano area. But not really. When you enter the volcano area, you try to cross a large bridge that is blown up by a mysterious figure, and Samus escapes before it collapses into the lava. What then need to do is leave the volcano, go all the way over to Volt Forge again. You go into the third tower and obtain an ability for the bike that allows you to traverse lava, and only then can you go back to the volcano and start the actual area. When you enter, you'll receive a Galactic Federation distress beacon.
911, what's your emergency?
I just wound up my own dick.
And find Sergeant Duke, who will be referred to as Sarge for the rest of the game. After meeting him, you waddle around the facility until he finds out that one of his squad mates is also here. You meet with her. Her name is Armstrong, and she is the second annoying character in this game. She fangirls over Samus a lot, which wouldn't be the worst thing ever. It kind of makes sense. Samus has saved the galaxy several times by this point. Just what is said, when, and how it's written that makes it annoying. It's also with these two that I feel that Samus's silence becomes almost deafening. Fucking stupid. Samus being spoken to by characters that she and the player are supposed to care about doesn't really work when she's silent the entire game. It worked in Prime 3 because the characters had little dialogue before they were killed. In this game, characters never shut up, and the game makes it clear that you and Samus are supposed to care about them. Anyway, after saving her, the three of you make your way through the facility, and you're attacked by a ship piloted by Psylux, who is in this game. He destroys a bunch of stuff, and you defeat the drone and continue the boss of the area. It's a pretty neat set piece of a boss, where you actually kill it by shooting a Psy-beam shot down its throat. But overall, it really wasn't great. You defeat the boss, and it gives you the grapple beam, and you then have an escape sequence where Samus has a heroic and sacrifices herself to save Sergeant Armstrong. Except not really, because Samus rolls away and ends up outside in Soul Valley. Final thoughts on the volcano? Terrible. The best part of this area was its boss. The biggest problem with this area is a problem you'll know with every fucking area in this game, and it's linearity. Every area in this fucking game is just a straight line. It's just not really Metroid. You fight the same 4 boring enemies in every area, and while I think the art direction in this game is strong, Armstrong, when every area after the first ends up being some kind of alien factory or facility, they really start to blend together, especially when the gameplay of them ends up being just walking in a straight line with occasional breaks for combat. While that technically may describe on a basic level the experience of playing any of the Prime games, I would argue that the other games do a good job of breaking up that experience with interesting story, upgrades, exploration, and environments. I feel that this game tones that back for what essentially equates to a Call of Duty or Halo campaign mission modified loosely to fit within the general genre of a Metroidvania.
Outcome? Train go boom.
Finally, you get to the final area, the mines, except for not really. You first have to go to the Vault Forge, go all the way to the bottom of the facility, made faster with your grapple beam, find a new chip, fight Psylux again. I didn't mention that before, but you fought him the first time you came here. Travel all the way back to Miles, get your upgrade, then travel to the snow area, enter a door, rescue Brobot,
You look like a cut of fuckable meat.
who opens a new area for you. Explore like 3 rooms, all to get the spider vault. Only then can you go back to the mines. Only now the gang is all here. All of the people you've rescued, including the Brobot, are there waiting for you to get to the other side with your newly acquired spider ball and extend the bridge. After you do that, it starts a cutscene where the team is attacked by a horde of grievers. Okabe and Brobot stay behind and fend them off while Samus, Sarge, and Armstrong head into the mines to get the final key. Below, you find a kind of griever nest and crystals that resonate sound and alert the horde when you are firing missiles. This means that you have to use exclusively charge shot lest you want to get swarmed. This sounds like it would be a handicap or an obstacle. What I haven't told you is that it's essentially a non-issue. You see, all damage outside of your main power beam is pretty much ineffective, so you'll likely have already been using exclusively spam fire and charge shots to deal damage to this point. As you continue through the mines, you'll have to use a drill to make your way into a natural cave as the other parts of the facility are blocked off. As you can imagine, this makes a lot of noise and you have to defend Armstrong and Sarge while it does its work. Oh, I forgot to mention that this whole area is an escort mission. Your squad mates can go down, and if they do, you have to revive them or you get a game over. It's fairly simple and easy, but quite needless. Anyway, once the drill is finished, you need to jump into the chasm it created to get away from the grievers. As you go to jump, you and Armstrong make it. Sarge decides to sacrifice himself so that you can get away. He uses the controls to block the escape with the drill. Armstrong and Samus are upset. You, the player, probably don't care, but you continue nonetheless. You go through the mines till you find your path blocked and you use a drill vehicle to clear it. You defend Armstrong while she pilots it. Once the path is unblocked, Samus jumps through and Armstrong chooses to sacrifice herself to stop the grievers from following you. Samus tries to stop her, but can't. Samus is upset as her beloved friend has just died. You, the player, probably don't care. After this, Brobot breaks in and helps you for a bit. You fight a big griever and then you get the super missiles. After a while, you get attacked again, and Brobot sacrifices himself to get you to the last area and fight an extra big griever as the area boss. Then you get the key and the power bomb. On your way out, Sarge and Armstrong and Brobot all come back. They survive their attacks. Oh joy.
Love.
Being alive!
Love.
Being alive! I'm
Love.
breathing!
Love.
Being alive! I'm a tremendous
Joy.
I'm a tremendous
Joy. Lovely. Lovely. Lovely.
You leave and go back to Miles at base. Here you are, with all 5 keys, ready to enter the final area. Except, not really. Throughout the game, you collect these green crystals, which are needed at the end game. Now, if you played through any of the other Prime games, you'll remember the in-game quests, where you have to collect keys in order to gain access to the ending of the game. This game has that as well, except it's the absolute worst it's been in the franchise. This is due to the terrible world layout and the fact there's actually 2 in this game. You have to collect the aforementioned crystals, but you also have to collect the mech pieces in order to fix a broken mech and break into the Chrono Tower. The mech parts are relatively reasonable. You need 8, and you find most of them in the Galactic Federation ruins throughout the map. You also have 2 that are found in the main areas of the game. For one of them, you just walk up and take it, and the other one you have to fight a boss. During the game, after finishing the snow area, Tokabi will appear periodically in a couple of places. Walking up to him triggers a cutscene where he talks to Samus and gives her an upgrade. The final gives you a chip that you take back to Miles, or an upgrade that allows you to collect the mech parts. The mech parts were the reasonable part of the quest. The crystals, on the other hand, are just fucking stupid. From the start of the game, you can collect these crystals, which one would think would make the quest quest a lot easier and quicker, except they make it so that the majority of the crystals need to be obtained by entering shrines you find in the desert and by destroying massive rocks you'll find in the desert. The problem is that these shrines require shot upgrades, and most of the time it feels like you're going to need the electric shot, which is the third or fourth to last upgrade you get in the entire fucking game. And then there's the boulders you need to destroy, but all those require power bombs, which is the actual last upgrade you'll get in the game. So they allow you to take on this quest from the start of the game, but essentially you only make it attainable with the final upgrades you get in the game, magnifying the frustration I feel towards the desert. The final quest extended my playtime by probably close to an hour, maybe more. It was just me W-keying through the desert trying to find the big rocks and shrines. It wastes the player's time. Anyway, there are 4 sections to the crystal gauge, and you're rewarded by finishing each one. The first section gives you a damage and velocity upgrade to your power beam. The second gives you the velocity upgrade to your control beam. The third gives you an upgrade that tracks the remaining crystals and rocks left in the desert so that you can get the last one quicker. The last one gives you a suit upgrade. Essentially allows you to channel some missiles into a shield that block damage. I didn't use it once since, you know, you only have it for like 20 minutes or so till the end of the fucking game. Oh, and also don't need it because the game is pitifully easy. The suit at least comes with the benefit of looking cool. It is essentially the light suit we have at home though. And also, again, the crystal tracker upgrade is near useless as it is the second to last reward you get, and the last section is the easiest to fill by far. After getting all that, you can initiate the endgame, which blocks you out of 100% if you enter and haven't already gotten it. When you talk to Miles, it initiates a cutscene where you and your squad go to the tower and break open the shield with the mech, which destroys it. Some cringe is said, and then you enter. And I gotta take a moment again just to say how good the art direction in this game is, especially in this area. It looks really cool. It's sad to say that it's about the only positive thing I have to say. You go to the top of the tower, see a cutscene, and then fight the final boss of the game. The final boss is Silux. Again, you fight him a third time with a new moveset, and you also have to protect and revive your 5 squad mates. Once you beat the first phase, he kidnaps Samus into his hole, and you fight him in sort of pocket dimension. This boss sucks ass. It's boring, and once again, not challenging. The hardest part is keeping your window licker squad from dying in an attack that can simply be avoided by jumping. I also hate when the final boss of a game is one you've already fought several times. So, once you defeat him, he tosses himself into the void much like a boss he's quite similar to, and you exit his hole and prepare to teleport home, except he squirts out of the hole, then shoots the teleporter, damaging it. This leaves very little time left as the teleporter is about to fail. Instead of shooting him and getting out of there, your squad of glue sniffers decide to hold him in place while Samus teleports out. Heroic sacrifice or whatever, and then Samus returns home to the planet the game started on. She shoots some Lemorn seed in the ground, and then the game ends. So, that's the general rundown of the progression of the game and its areas.
The story is fairly simple and serviceable outside of the characters. Samus is called to help a Federation base that's being attacked by space pirates commanded by Silux. You get there and fight your way through the facility. Silux bursts into the facility with 2 Metroids under his command. The Metroids merge with a big space pirate similar to an X-Parasite, and then you fight it. After that, Samus and Silux shoot at each other and an artifact that the Federation soldiers were wheeling around. It's hit and it blows up in some kind of energy blast. Samus then finds herself on Viros, a mysterious planet with a long-dead civilization. After exploring for a bit, Samus meets Miles, and then after fighting the first major boss, is given a new psychic ability and a lore dump. Samus now knows that she needs the keys and crystals so you can begin the actual progression of the game. But what about the overall narrative? Well, it's all about the Lemorn, an ancient and advanced civilization with psychic powers. Long ago, they sought to bring prosperity to the world and their species. Some were born with crystals embedded in their heads that allowed them to tap into their psychic abilities, and some were not. Eventually, the Lemorn figured out that they could give all Lemorn these abilities by giving those who did not have them the psychic crystals. This led to an age of peace and understanding within their society, but they still had the issue of Soul Valley, the barren desert, near devoid of life. They wanted to change this. Fortunately, they had discovered a mysterious green substance in a volcano. They came to realize that this green energy had the ability to accelerate and induce the growth of life within the land. They began harvesting this green energy in order to launch a sort of missile that rains down this energy onto the land. They believed this would allow life to prosper within Soul Valley. Only, the energy had the unforeseen effect of mutating their own species into ravenous, mindless beasts called Grievers. These Grievers quickly overwhelmed and annihilated the majority of the Lemorn species, until there were not but a few priests and scientists left. Within the lab that Samus visits in the snow area, they did experiments on Grievers, only to discover discover that this fate, this great tragedy, was their own doing. In their arrogance, they tried to play God, and they were punished with not just death, but a removal of their minds. Within the lab, they slowly withered away, some killed by grievers, others died slowly, until one remained. Even he would succumb eventually to the elements as the generator, the one thing keeping him from freezing to death, stopped functioning. Few other Lamorn remained alive. They barricaded themselves in the Chrono Tower. Lamorn had seen a prophecy, a vision of a chosen one who would one day deliver them from this horrid fate. They spent their days hoping that eventually the chosen one would appear. Time passed and passed and passed some more until eventually their hope dwindled. They hatched a new plan. 9 of them would use the teleporter at the top of Chrono Tower to scour the galaxy in search for their chosen one. One hopeful remained. They stayed in wait, but one day their kin would return, possibly with the chosen one in tow. But that day never came. Days turned to months, turned to years, turned to time indeterminate, and eventually this solitary Lamorn's life would fade. Their final act, as their life and hope dissipated, was to leave a message to their chosen one, should they one day find themselves within the Chrono Tower. I actually quite like the story of the Lamorn. I'm quite a sucker for the kind of story that has a few hopeful scientists at the end of the world trying anything to fix whatever apocalypse had befallen the world, and slowly but surely dying out with the full knowledge that they are dying. I think it's a super cool and horrifying concept to be locked inside with hell outside while knowing full well that you're going to die, but still trying to fix things anyways. In the modern day, Samus now knows how to get home. She needs those 5 teleporter keys. She also decides to take on another main quest in the game, that being completing the Lamorn memory seed using the crystals you collect during the game in order to spread the Lamorn's knowledge so they aren't forgotten. Within the Vault Forge, you battle Sylux, who is also teleported here apparently, except it's actually just a robot that is disguised as him, I guess. You do this twice. It's a fake both times, but then the final battle is against the real one. He just kind of appears out of some kind of healing pod in the Chrono Tower.
Slippery little bastard! I don't have time for this. Oh, you've got to be kidding me.
I'm gonna be so fucking real here. I have no clue why the hell Sylux is in this game at all. He shows up at the beginning of the game, and then as an apparition a couple of times in the story, but essentially has no bearing on the overall plot of the game outside of the opening act and the final boss. There's supposed to be a plot point that he's genetically modified Metroids so he can control them, and they have the ability to burrow into other life forms and control them. But they only exist within the intro of the game, and then all the major bosses are infected with them as well. It just doesn't really make sense to me why they even bothered. It honestly feels like they had a plot written out for the game, and then when they restarted, they only tossed out part of it and really wanted to keep some of the other elements, regardless of whether or not they'd actually work within the new story. And that's one of the biggest problems with the game. It's actual narrative, not the lore of the Lamorn, but the story of the now. You start with a story that makes sense. Sylux commands space pirates, and he's attacking the Federation labs. Go stop him. Then the story shifts to Psychic Samus plays Savior. I feel like the story just doesn't really make sense. It doesn't really work. This game has its narrative as one of the largest pillars of its design, and its narrative feels disjointed and nonsensical at points. For example, if the Lamorn had the foresight of the Chosen One so much that they can lay out items specifically for Samus in specific areas so that Samus can get them, in the lab that happens, then why is Samus attacked by the Lamorn drones? During the game, you're shown cutscenes of the Galactic Federation base that you were at being destroyed and the detonation of a device that teleported you to Viros. Is it never explained? No reason why, randomly, you and 4 others, Sylux and a robot, survived. You're just here. Oh, but don't look at that. Look at this, ancient civilization. Ooh, Chosen One. Ooh, whatever. The characters are so terrible, man. Besides the cringe writing that they exude, they don't really work. Another important level, and that's the stakes. It's incredibly clear through the multiple sacrifices they have in this game that Retro really wants you to give a damn about these characters. They make it clear that Samus is supposed to care about these characters. So I have to ask why the hell Samus doesn't speak in this game. Now I know what happened last time Samus spoke in the game. It
to the familiar voice of a quarantine officer.
Wasn't great. Except wrong. Incorrect. I fooled you, idiot. Samus speaks in several games in the franchise, and fucking worse, mostly because the writing isn't utter dog shit. She spoke in Fusion and Dread. and in both games it served a purpose within the story. It wasn't bad or cringe. Samus doesn't need to be endlessly silent. Samus talking can work. I don't even think Samus needs to be someone with particularly little to say. If the writing is good, then her speaking can be good. She could probably work as someone who only speaks when spoken to as well. From what we know of Samus, I believe her character to be fairly straightforward but compassionate. Does it really make sense for Samus to fight alongside another soldier who is clearly injured, finish the fight, and then say absolutely nothing? In my opinion, it doesn't really make sense. There is too much talking being done, especially to Samus, for her to remain silent. On another note, Tokabi is a character I find especially confusing. Through your talks with him, he tells you about his homeworld and family lineage, but he also tells you about the god he worships, Solon. Now, my problem is introduction of religion into the Metroid. I don't really think that's a bad thing inherently. I do, however, find it odd that all we get world-building wise about this character and his religion is that he and his family subscribe to it and that Solon watches over all. It just seems unnecessary. It's hard to tell if it's just him or much of the galaxy worships this god. There's just very little lore about it, so it seems odd to introduce it at all. It is yet another aspect of this game that feels like an artifact from a story that was partially scrapped. The characters within this game are pointless to me as well. I feel that they serve to distract from the linearity of the areas they're in, especially the mines and the volcano, where you constantly have chuds yapping in your ear as you pretty much just travel in a straight line. In the end, they end up being a nuisance and having little bearing on the main story besides being fodder for a heroic sacrifice later in the story. That's all I really have to say about the story and characters for the moment.
The gameplay is, well, hit and miss. On one hand, Samus controls the absolute best she ever has, similar to the control game of Prime 1 Remastered, but with improvements in precision and movement. Then on the other hand, you have the bike and desert, and the overall structure of the environments. Even the combat is fucked. I've mostly gone over why I'd hate the bike in the desert. Let's move on to the environments. Every single area in this game is extremely linear. Most of the areas in this game feel like a Halo mission with little actual backtracking and few moments where you see something and think to yourself, I want to come back for that, because you can't access it now. To be clear, it's not that there aren't things like that are shown that you clearly don't have yet. It's that they show you these all the time, but for the majority of those instances, the ability you need isn't obtained till way later in the game. Another problem with the structure, as well, is that the majority of the abilities you get aren't used but a couple of times throughout the game. Spider and Boost Ball, for example, I think I could count on one hand the number of times there was a spider ball track or half pipe in the game. I feel that way for nearly every one of the abilities in this game. They feel like all one-off puzzle solving tools for the most part. Speaking of puzzles, there are also the puzzles, which in this game has to be some of the most dead simple and uncreative in the franchise. The majority of the puzzles in this game are boiled down to scan and shoot or scan to solve. I'm not going to pretend that Metroid's always had the most titillating brain teasers for puzzles, but I'd like to think that the solutions were at least a little more creative in previous titles.
And it doesn't work. Look, it doesn't fucking work.
Moving to the combat, while Samus may control well, it doesn't matter if the combat isn't fun, and unfortunately, the combat really isn't great. The reason for that is mostly due to the damage numbers. In this game, you'll quickly notice how ineffective your missiles are, and once you get the shot upgrades, those too. And once you get the super missiles, those too. And you get the point. The most effective weapon you get is your basic power beam. Whether it be charge shots or spam fire, it will always be the most effective solution to a combat encounter, especially after you get the first green crystal reward, which increases its damage by a bit, possibly 2 times. It also increases its velocity. In previous games, you had several ways to fight enemies effectively. Your missiles, your super missiles, power bombs, charge beam, and other beam types were generally quite effective, especially when element matching. Actually, the only thing that wasn't really effective was spam firing. Nothing really does damage as efficiently as your regular power beam in this game. And it doesn't help that the super missile, the only other semi-effective weapon you get, is the second to last upgrade you unlock in the game. Finally, you have the enemy variety, which is awful. In this game, you will essentially fight 2 enemy types, Grievers and Robots. Grievers have 3 varieties: the normal Griever, which is melee and range attacks, a green energy Griever, which is the same but more health and damage, then the final one, which explodes.
My main goal to blow up.
and he's only introduced in the final area. As for the robots, you have the basic robot, who has a melee and ranged attack. The ranged attack is a laser. Then there's another one that has a shield, and with the grapple beam, you can pull away the shield and it acts like a normal robot. Then there's teleporting ones, which has to be the most annoying variety. They teleport around and are only vulnerable for short windows, and every time they teleport, you lose targeting. Lastly, you have the robot who uses shockwaves to deal damage, forcing you to jump to avoid them. There's two more enemy types you fight similarly regularly. Those are the turret and the drone. The turret shoots at you in bursts, and the drone shoots lasers at you similar to the robots. There are three enemy types you fight in the desert on the bike. Two are drones, and the other is a flock of birds. Besides that, you only have a few one-off enemy types that you fight in each area. For the most part, really just fight drones and grievers. I really don't like this. In the other three games, you had a pretty large variety of enemies to fight. The semi-highlight of this game's combat was its bosses, with all of them being unique from each other, even if not entirely in a good way for some of them. The biggest flaw of the bosses is that they quickly become boring. Most of their attacks are simple to avoid and don't deal a significant amount of damage. This wouldn't be the biggest problem if they were quick to fight, but they aren't. They can take quite some time to kill, especially if you're fooled into thinking that you should be using missiles or shots to deal damage. I swear some of these bosses could take upwards of 10 minutes to kill. It becomes tedious, especially when you consider that the fights only get longer if you use anything other than your power beam. The boss I want to pull out and look at in particular are your encounters with Psylux. His fights are all mid. They all feel pretty much like a retread of the Dark Samus fights in Metroid Prime 2, and at this point I've been comparing this game to Prime 2 quite a bit, and simply put, that's because this game tries to be extremely similar to Prime 2, down to copying entire set pieces from the game.
Now, in fairness, this is definitely just a nod to Metroid Prime 2. However, it doesn't really help my appreciation for this game when you remind me that I could be playing an infinitely better one.
The world structure is similar to Prime 2, albeit far worse. Some of the boss fights are similar. Each major area has you trying to get to its end to get a MacGuffin of sorts guarded by a boss that caps off the area. Hell, Psylux in the final boss tosses himself off the platform you're on in a move pulled almost literally straight from the second Dark Samus fight in Prime 2. They even steal the ammo system, the absolute worst part of Prime 2. With that, I guess it's a good time to talk about the I've already talked some shit about the upgrades in this game, but this is the time I can really go into why I think they're so bad. In this game, you have most of your standard upgrades: the morph ball bombs, missiles, super missiles, grapple beam, etc. Although in this game, many of them get new functions. They separate these revamped abilities by adding the word psychic to the beginning of their titles. No, I'm not joking. They actually just change the names in this way. So the morph bomb becomes the psychic morph ball bomb, and it actually gets the coolest new ability of them all. Now, with the psychic morph bomb, you can hold the bomb button to channel the bomb into a psychic orb that can be tossed into reservoirs to activate them. This is used for puzzle solving, mostly in the beginning of the game, after which they kind of forget about it and stop using it. Then there's the psychic boost ball, which gains the ability to use invisible rails that kind of act like the zip lines from Metroid Prime 3. The psychic space jump boots allow you to jump on invisible platforms. The psychic grapple beam allows you to grapple invisible grapple points. The psychic power bomb allows you to do the same thing as a morph bomb, but at this time it's a power bomb explosion instead of a normal one. You'll notice that I haven't mentioned two things that, to this point, if you've played any of the other games, you'll know is kind of a staple of the franchise. That is the visors and the beam upgrades. They don't exist in this game. No ice, plasma, wave, light, dark, annihilator beam, or anything. There's no thermal, x-ray, dark, or echo visor either. The visors have all been merged into one. This includes the scan visor. The new Cronenberg amalgamation that you get is called the psychic visor, and it allows you to interact with all things psychic. This includes rails, doors, Lamorne tech, and more that I really don't care to write down at this point. This might sound like a headache, and it is, mostly because of how clunky it can become. Now, I'm willing to accept a skill issue on my part with this one, but I would like to explain my position. In all of the previous games, when you were in the scan visor, you could press the fire button to immediately exit it and go back to the normal fire mode. In this game, it's no different, at least at first. Then you unlock the control beam, an admittedly cool item that allows you to charge a shot and control it when it's fired. It becomes annoying when I'm
trying to exit the scan visor and it keeps charging up a control beam shot instead of exiting. I find this especially annoying, but that could just be me and my muscle memory from playing the other games as much as I have. The scan visor as a whole is a massive downgrade from the previous games in my opinion. In this game, when you enter it, everything goes grayscale and scannables are highlighted in green, and then psychic interactables are highlighted yellow. And also so are key scans such as bosses and people. When you scan things, they turn gray and mark that you have a scan. Except items that are naturally green or gray can become difficult to tell if you've already scanned them or if it's scannable at all. This becomes an issue for me as soon as the opening of the game, where several objects you may miss because it's hard to tell whether they're scanned or not, or scannable at all. This isn't the biggest deal, but it is still a downgrade from the previous games where scans were color-coded. Then there's the shot upgrades. These are frankly the worst idea in the game. Maybe not actually, the desert. Assuming for a moment that you've played Prime 2, what would you say is the worst aspect of the game? I would personally say the ammo system. Well, imagine the ammo system in that game, but exponentially worse. You see, in Prime 2, if you were in need of ammo, you could easily obtain it by killing an enemy or opening a cache with a beam of the opposite type you needed. So, to get dark beam ammo, you'd shoot something with the light beam, and vice versa. In 4, they throw all that out of the window and drive over it with a semi. Ammo drops are not guaranteed in this game. I don't even think they're weighted for whatever you actually need. As a result, if you're on low ammo, you can get stuck searching for anything that might drop it. You may be thinking, well, there's doors you need to open with shot upgrades that are needed to progress. Surely there's some kind of way to open them even if you don't have ammo. Nope, there is not. In Prime 2, when this happened, you could charge up a weak shot that enabled you to open doors and break caches for ammo. Not in this game. You can simply get stuck searching for ammo. In fairness, this is a limited issue, since you're usually not going to be using them for anything other than opening doors and the occasional puzzle because they're all completely fucking useless. As I said before, every avenue of damage is less efficient than just using your basic power beam. Your shot upgrades are no exception. There's probably the worst offender of this because the ammo problems. These are the upgrades replacing beam upgrades. Personally, I would say this is a massive downgrade. That's nothing unique for this game. You remember Prime 1 and 2? They'd have these secret optional upgrades for your beam weapons that gave them unique super missile abilities? Well, they have those in this game as well. They're just some problems. You get them from the shrines, and they're also lacking damage, of course. Once again, they're just ineffective. I used them once throughout the playthrough. That's the thing, really. The upgrades overall just don't feel significant. They're all underutilized. Many of them get used in very few niche puzzles. Then the combat ones just aren't necessary to be used at all. The largest issue, though, is the upgrade pacing. Let's look at Prime 1. We won't count Talon Overworld, since you essentially just go there at the beginning and walk straight through it. The Chozo Ruins you get, the Morph Ball, Morph Bombs, Charge Beam, Various Suit, Missiles, and way later, the Ice Beam as well. In the first area of Prime 4, you get Missiles, Psychic Glove, and Morph Bombs, with each area allowing you 2 to 3 upgrades. In Metroid Prime 1, within Magmor, you only obtain 2 abilities, Plasma Beam and Super Ice Missiles. While you may only unlock 2 abilities in this area, it's only really used as a crossroads for the player, with no major bosses either. So it's comparable to the desert in Prime 4. If we look at the next actual area you explore in Prime 1, Phendrana Drifts, you'll see the contrast even more. In Phendrana, you unlock Boost Ball, Wave Beam, Thermal Visor, Super Missiles, Spider Ball, and the Gravity Suit. In the second major area of Prime 4, the Volt Forge, you unlock the Bike and the Space Jump Boots. This continues the entire game, where you only get a couple of upgrades per area. Another annoying aspect of this is that from the first area of Prime 4, you'll be seeing things that require the Electric Shot. This is the 4th to last upgrade in the game, and also the most utilized upgrade in the game, I'd say. Or, I suppose, the one I saw I needed the most. It's simply not structured well. In other games, say Prime 2, you'll see doors that require Super Missiles or the Annihilator Beam as early as the second area. You won't get either of these upgrades until a great deal later in the game. However, you also are shown doors in these areas that require abilities that you'll get before the end of the area. So you'll see Light and Dark Beam doors that you'll be able to open before you've even finished the area. It's simply not the same in Prime 4. Areas you can't access build intrigue and desire to backtrack later in the game, or at least they're supposed to. But in Prime 4, you'll see them and get fooled into thinking that you're about to get some cool new ability and have new areas to open to you, only to fight a main boss and be rewarded with an energy tank. I could be wrong about this, but the main bosses and the rest of the franchise always rewarded you with a new ability, or at least that I can remember. It feels as though upgrades in this game are used as one-offs. Immediately after you obtain them, you never use them again. And so many of those crucial moments where you want to come back to an area end up needing an ability you won't get until the end of the game. Overall, the abilities in this game are underutilized and poorly paced.
Metroid Prime came out in 2002, followed by Metroid Prime 2 Echoes in 2004, then by Metroid Prime 3 Corruption in 2007. These games were a bit of a generational run for Metroid, all three of them incredible in their own right. Prime 1 was a never-before-seen kind of game, bringing Metroid to the third dimension and executing its style brilliantly. It was not without its flaws. Its world suffered from a lack of interconnectedness, primarily. Then Prime 2 came out and fixed the world while bringing its own issues, primarily the ammo system, which was nothing but a nuisance to the player that could be ignored until it couldn't be, at which point it only served to annoy the player. Prime 3 was the weakest game in a lot of ways, with a heavy focus on story and characters, but it offered a unique experience and a variety of interesting environments for the player to explore. Prime 4 was announced and restarted. Players potentially waited nearly 20 years to see the continuation of the franchise. Simply put, Prime 4 isn't the game players should have received. It barely is a Metroid game at all. In my opinion, it's not even a good game. It often feels more like a Halo campaign with occasional breaks for open-ended exploration, but that open-ended exploration been neutered. Instead of getting to explore an intricate alien world, you are placed in an empty desert and told where to go at every possible moment. It doesn't respect the player's intelligence. It wastes the player's time with needless back and forth that is made all the worse by slow travel between each location that doesn't even have the courtesy to be visually interesting or give the player music to listen to. This game's combat is simultaneously the best feeling and the worst feeling the franchise has ever had. Samus moves and aims great while having essentially one valid weapon to be used in every encounter. It lacks the variety of enemies, and its bosses go on for way too long while not offering even a shred of actual challenge to the player at any point along the way. Every major area of this game is ridiculously linear and can be accurately explained as traveling in a straight line with occasional breaks for combat arenas. The story is a disjointed mess that asks the player to care about poorly written characters that hardly end up mattering at all. Characters who only exist to say cringy Marvel lines and make heroic sacrifices that the player is expected to be upset about. The only thing the player is likely feeling at that point is great relief that they will no longer have to hear Miles tell them where to go and when, and that the player needs to collect green crystals for the millionth time. The player's upgrades are poorly paced, and the locations are boring to explore. Enemies are unchallenging, upgrades unrewarding, story lame, and Metroid Prime 4, in my opinion, fails at nearly every point. I have almost nothing positive to say about this game. That is, except for a few things. The music in the game was good, although I can't say that I remember any of it except for the Fury Greens soundtrack. The art direction in this, for the most part, amazing. The game looks great, and the game controls well. That is the extent of nice things I have to say about this game. As upsetting as this game is to me, if you enjoyed it, if this is your first Metroid game and you loved it, I'm happy for you. The great thing about this game is that in terms of Metroid Prime, it is literally only up from here. To me, along with a lot of longtime fans of this game, this entry is a bit of a joke. The biggest disappointment in terms of video games that I've ever personally experienced. I say that my confidence in Retro has definitely expired as a result of this game. Apparently, Prime 5 is a virtual guarantee if Prime 4 does well financially, and they've got the development pipeline set up for efficiency. Maybe in the next 5 years we'll see Prime 5. I can only hope that we see a game comparable in quality, structure, tone, etc. to the original trilogy and not another game similar to Prime 4. Anyway, that's pretty much all I have to say about it. If you made it this far in the video, I extend a very sincere thank you. I have never made a video like this, and I hope that I did well. I especially appreciate you taking your time to listen to me yap, regardless of whether or not you're someone new or one of my dear friends. Thank you for watching.